Welcome back to MySQL Lesson 10. This is a tutorial on workbench data modeling. In the first video for Lesson 10, you actually created a database model from an existing database. In this video, you will be creating a new database from a new model that was created from scratch, kind of the opposite thing. Start by opening the MySQL workbench. Click File. Then click New Model. In the Model Overview, click the plus sign, Add Diagram, and that will create a new EER diagram. Since the default name is MyDB, you will probably want to change it. So, double-click the name on the catalog tree, and this window appears where you can type in the name Any Database. Click Rename References to ensure that all definitions match the new database name. Now you are ready to use one of the icons to the left of the diagram workspace. You can check these out when you review the lesson, but for now, click Place a New Table. It will display a hand to place the table. By clicking anywhere in the body of the diagram workspace, the table will be placed. You can specify the table name right here. I'm going to change it to Any Table. In this design window below the table name, there are entries for column names. Double-click a column, and you can input it. The first column I've added here is named ID Any Table. Right of the column name are the type and attribute choices. This will be an integer. It's a primary key, and not null, because it's an ID. Below ID Any Table, I can enter the next column. This one is Any Table Name. I left the type as var_char with a length of 45. It doesn't require any special attributes. The third column I'm going to add is Any Table Email Address. It is going to be type var_char or variable character. But I'm going to change the size of it by using the drop-down to the right of the type. You can also see that there are more choices for the types when you click that little down arrow. So to change the size, I simply type in 65 within the parentheses next to that type. I have one more column to add here, Any Table Zip Code. It's also typed as an integer, and you can limit it to 9 characters if you like. Since zip code is always positive, I can also select unsigned integer as one of the attributes. The last column I'm entering here is Any Table Balance Due, just to show you that you can also have a decimal value. This one has a length of 10, including 2 digits after the decimal point. For each column that I've entered below, I can also see it in the table represented in the diagram above. It tells the type and the name. It also shows an indicator for the primary key. Accidentally, you can sometimes put an extra column in here at the bottom. Just right-click it and delete it. And that's a good model representation of any table. Let's take a quick review of some of the common attributes. For instance, there's zero fill, auto increment, unique index, binary column, and unsigned integer. Notice here that the attributes of the primary key or index are created automatically unless you decide to change them. There are more attribute options below, and we will cover some of them in this video. Later, you can go to the online workbench tutorial and check them out. Now that I have the Any Table defined, I'm going to go up and save this model, just in case something happens and I need the information again. So I use Save Model As. It will automatically pick a folder that you last used. Be sure and select a category or folder name that's descriptive, such as SAMPDB Modeling. I'm also going to use a descriptive name for the file, Any DB Model, and save it. When you're finished with the database model, you can click Database and Forward Engineer. That actually creates a script file that can be used to create your database from the information we just entered in the model. Click Next. Here it has some options that you can allow to default. You can click Next again, and this page summarizes the request. Click Next again, and this window allows you to review the create statements that will create the database. Optionally, you can save the create as a .sql file that can be run from the workbench. But for this demo, I will click Next to continue and create my database. Now I can close this dialog and check my results. I'm going to go over to the MySQL workbench and open a query to check it out. In the query window, I notice that the database isn't showing up, so I'm going to have to click refresh, and now any database is displayed. With this model, I only created one table, and its columns are any table name, any table email address, any table zip code, and any table balance due, plus the ID any table. Now I would like to go back to my model and try to add another table to this database and then link it to any table with a foreign key. I open that existing EER model named AnyDB model, and there's any table. I click Place a New Table button on the left to add the new table to this relationship. Then click the body of the diagram and get started. Just like before, I type in the table name. I'm going to use another table here. I type in a column. I'm going to use ID another table. Again, this is a primary key, not null, unsigned, and zero fill. Let's give it one other table column. This would be a link to any table ID, and it will be named any_ID. And this will become a foreign key. So it's an integer, just like it was in any table. It also has the attributes primary key and not null. I go down to the bottom and click the Foreign Keys tab. This is how I set up the foreign key ID. First, I give it the foreign key name. I use fkey_any. Then click Reference Table and use the drop-down to select the reference table, which is anydatabase.anytable. Next, click the column to the right that's referenced. Now, any_ID is going to match up with ID anytable, so we have to use that one. And it is referenced in the column ID anytable. It's pretty smart about that. As you can see, the foreign key is linked between another table now and any table in our diagram. Since the model has changed considerably, I want to preserve any database. So I will rename this model by typing a new name, mydb2tbls, in the catalog tree, and again click Rename References, and it will rename the entire model. Now I'm going to save model as and give it another name. I used mydb2tbls to signify that model name. Next, I can click Database on the toolbar and Forward Engineer again. I'll click Next 3 times and take a look at the review information where we can see that my DB2TBLS creation was for 2 tables and how it sets up the foreign key. Finally, I'll click Finish. I close the data modeling windows and open a query connection again. So now if I go and look at the definition of my DB2TBLS and refresh it, I see 2 tables, another table and any table. I also see foreign key indexing and how it's pointing to ID any table. It looks like this one is now connected via a foreign key. With the information from the 2 videos in this lesson, you should be able to create a model from an existing database or create your own brand new model and then create a database from it. This video should also help you with creating the database tables for your Lesson 10 assignment and your project for the video store. Good luck with your assignment and your final project.